Hello everybody and welcome back. So instead of going directly into Houdini and how this works and how to do this and how to do that, I think for this workshop it's much more important to talk about the visual and talk about what can I create or how can I create something utilizing smoke, fire, particles that will help tell the story rather than, oh, this is a nice fire, this is how I did it. I want to show basically my thought process and how I've gotten to create what I've done. And then once we have, let's say, an idea, okay, I want to emit fire from the cracks, I want it to be this long, I want the smoke to be this high and stuff like that, then we can talk about the technical stuff, how to solve those issues. But I don't want to go straight into that because I think this part is very, very important, and I'm gonna go over a lot of tests. Some are meaningful, some are random, just trying something completely off. Some tests that I failed in, that where the sim looks terrible or just the visual looks terrible, and I had to drop them and try something different. And from these tests we will go over different examples where you guys will see, for example, a fire that it moves too quickly or a smoke that rises too high, and you will see, okay, that doesn't look right, so I'm not going to do that. And then you will learn from these examples enough visual ideas that you will go into your shot and say, okay, I know this element is going to work. I'm going to try these 4 ideas, and from them, I'm going to pick the one I like the most. And so I want you guys to acquire visual researching from this beginning instead of just going into pressing buttons or doing some cool stuff in Houdini. We will get there, but I think having a goal or having a perception of what you want is very, very important. So the tests are not in order, so I'm just gonna go over them. They're going to be a bit slow because I'm loading the original EXR files, and then I'm just gonna show what I have. So for example, this is a smoke sim, and what I was trying to test is when I started in the beginning, I wanted to do one sim that has a nice fire and also a nice smoke. But what I realized, which I'm already aware of, is that it's not going to be possible because you would want to control the fire individually from the smoke. And if we use the fire as the source of our smoke, they're going to be tightly coupled and it's going to be really hard to manage. But that's one part. But then there's also the visual part. What if I create a smoke sim and the source is also used as the fire? So the one that emits density also emits temperature, not fire, temperature. And then I was trying to test how that looked, and it didn't look great because, it didn't look great. That's as simple as that. The source emits for a couple of frames and then it dissipates quickly, and it wasn't giving me the result I wanted. But what I see here is that I like the transparency of the smoke, for example. I like how fast it moves. I like how fast it rises. So these are things I'm gonna try to keep. Okay, so this is another test where, okay, so for example, we could do these 2 sims individually, but also I can use the fire to emit fire, do a sim that emits mainly fire and focus on that, but also have it emit a little bit of smoke. Instead of just pure bright fire, we can have that fire emit smoke. And what this is going to help us do, you can see here, these are the elements because I don't have everything simmed, and you will see the clusters disappearing because I don't finish all the clusters all the time. It's just stop and I let it run in the morning, come the next day and just stop and render to see what I have. So this test, for example, is to see if I got some nice flames, what if I add some smoke around them, from the sim. And you can see that result here. This is apart from the smoke element itself, just to have a nice density field around the fire, which will allow it to glow if I turn on indirect illumination. You can see it here. Sorry, multiple scattering. So that's basically to give the fire room to interact with something to make it feel glowy. So that's something I wanted to try, and I think it's working, but it was a bit slow to render all these elements, so I ended up turning it off. And by this time, I'm using Houdini 18 with the sparse solver, and you will see quite often that it has some issues. Now, these issues we'll discuss them in a bit because it's part of the technical stuff, but you will see smoke that freezes. You will see smoke that suddenly clips, or a resolution that suddenly changes. And what I used to do, you will see here, for example, a square shape appearing here and there and then disappearing quickly. What I used to do is I used to create the fire. When I have a fire sim, I create a fire and then I add temperature, I add density field. Whether I end up using that density field or not, I always sim it because I want that data to be available, and then it will give me control later. When I tried that in the sparse, it didn't work because you have to, because that data is not, the solver doesn't care too much about that data because it thinks that it's not going to be rendered. So it disregarded it. It doesn't treat it carefully, and that's why this is happening. Okay, that's why this clipping is happening. But overall, I think at this point I'm happy with the fire. This is one of the latest tests, and but the smoke I'm not happy with yet. So like all this, I think it can be a lot better. It moves super quick, and then it's dissipating very quickly. So this is another test where I wanted to see, okay, this is great. What if I make the smoke goes up higher? So as the fire, that's frame 80, so it's 2 sims, fire and then a separate smoke sim. I said, okay, what if I increase the density and have the smoke come up quickly and higher, and have the RBD pieces continuously emit fire to see what it looks like. So this is the result. You can see this object here. The RBD piece is still emitting fire, and then it stops in this one here as well. And it was working. I think I like this glow at the bottom, but it's just it occluded the entire scene. There's no, the scale is off. It doesn't feel realistic, and I've lost the access to the center piece. And at this point, I think I'm still emitting from the center fire. I haven't gotten to that decision yet, but yeah, as you can see, this smoke is not working. So we cannot go too crazy with the density. We still have to see through. It cannot be too fast. It cannot rise too much. So all these questions are answered and clear to me. This is another, I think it's the same, the previous sim from a different camera. And this is the clusters. Let's go. So you see the cluster separation here. At this point, I only have one cluster, and this is the circle like this. This is the center of it. And I wanted to include that element to see how everything looks. And the cluster, this one is only for the smoke, and then the fire, I think I have all of them simmed and ready, I believe. So this is another version, and looking at it, I still think the smoke is too much. It rises too much. It's the same as the previous one, and it didn't work for the close-up and from the far away. So this idea is gone. I'm not gonna do that at all. Doesn't matter how nice the smoke is, it's not helping my visual. Even if this sim by itself looks insane, I will not do it because it's not helping the visual I want to convey. So let's continue. So this is okay. So I made that decision, and then I said, okay, I need to work on that smoke. I need to tune it down. It cannot rise too much. It cannot be very present, because I wanted to balance all these elements. So this is the closest version before the final, and then I'll probably explain this later. But what I wanted to show is that this smoke is very heavy. You know, like there's a lot of material in it, so it falls down on the ground and tries to stick to the surface rather than rising. Even if it's hot, it's not going to rise too much, and I wanted to show that. And also I wanted to create some kind of magical feeling or something unique about this. So I used a very big turbulent scale to cause everything to move. You know, we'll see this more in the final shot, but I wanted to create big patterns, very big swirls in the entire scene. And if you look at the individual elements, it will not look, the sim itself is not, the movement will look a bit off, but in the final, when it's all combined with the spaceship, with the RBD, it all came together and it looked really, really nice, in my opinion. So this is another test. It's V7, so we started V1, 2, 3, 4. I think I skipped 5 and 6, and then I did V7, and then I believe V8 is the final. And no, sorry, V8 is the one before the final. And I'm locked at this camera. I'm only rendering from this camera, and if it looks good here and I have enough resolution, when I get closer, it's gonna look fine. And at this point, I've also decided to remove that center because I wanted to control the emission, the center, the spaceship rising by its sim by itself. And it just, if I wanted for, I was considering doing some kind of gravitational force that actually sucks in smoke inside the as the ship rises. And I wanted to have that element do that, but I run out of time to explore that idea. But it's something definitely worth exploring, to have the center sucks in the nearby smoke and cause it to move quickly and maybe emit more fire, maybe more sparks to convey what's happening. And yeah, so this is, you see here how this part is moving with the big swirls. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have something that moves everything, always moves the flow basically. And it's not very realistic. Like if you try and do that behavior in an explosion or something, it's not gonna look very natural. But it worked in this scenario and this scope, and it's something I wanted to try, and it worked really well. So okay, at this point, I have a good idea of what the fire is going to be, how big, how long the flames are, how fast, and how much smoke I need, and all that question is figured out. I know that. So the next step is to improve this, not to change it. So for example, I wanted to add more details in the sim. So that's going to be a resolution. It's going to be increasing the resolution of individual sims, and maybe add finer disturbance, finer shredding, or anything like that. Increase the fire resolution, and also the next element would be to investigate the sparks, because it's going to be very important element of this visual. And from this, I'm pretty happy. I call it locked, and then I make the final tweaks to make it look really, really good. Okay, so let's see. So before I've gotten there, I don't have these tests in order. I was trying to, like I did with the particle emission test, where every crack is going to emit fire. I also did a similar test with the smoke, and this is just half of the circle, or I believe one cluster, where I emit a very fine smoke. And for this we need a lot of resolution, and at this point I still haven't it's two cluster. At this point I didn't reach the point where I decided to do fire. So the first one was based off of particle energy, like magical blue effects, and I wanted the smoke to also have something blue inside of it. So this is one test doing that, and it could work. It actually, I think there's a lot of potential here, but if with the connection to this shot, I needed to stay in a reasonable there need to be a connection between the two shots. So that is the lava and fire and sparks. Okay, so for this idea, I quickly realized it's not gonna work well with the other shot. But I kept exploring. So this is a different render. Yeah, the idea was to emit a lot of particles from these cracks and then have some blue energy in the center. This is a light, you know, that's following the spaceship. But again, it didn't work. So this is another cluster with the center, I think, rising up, the using temperature to cause the smoke to rise up quite a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here and we'll continue in the next video. Thank you guys for watching and see you in a bit.